Hi, everybody. It's Paula, and this is the Common Book Show. And I'm here today remotely with James and Nessa. And I've got Richard and Jason in the studio, and of course, my son Tom on drums.
Ludwig's.
I've been talking a lot about reading Plutarch's Lives and the histories, and I just wanted to read one paragraph from each to give you an example of why I'm really enjoying histories because of the translation, and why Plutarch's Lives is like a bunch of words that they just threw on the page and they didn't even make an attempt to make them make sense. Okay, so that which gave this is from Plutarch's Lives. Okay, that which gave most pleasure and ornament to the city of Athens, and the greatest admiration and even astonishment to all strangers, and that which is now Greece's only evidence that the power she boasts of and her ancient wealth are no romance or idle story, was the construction of the public and sacred buildings. One sentence. Yet this was that of all his actions and government which his enemies most looked askance upon and cavilled at the popular assemblies, trying out how that the Commonwealth of Athens had lost its reputation and was ill spoken of abroad for removing the common treasures of the Greeks from the Isle of Delos into their own custody, and how that their fairest excuse for doing so, namely that they took it away for fear the barbarian should seize it, and on purpose to secure it in a safe place that Pericles had made unavailable, and how that Greece cannot but resent it is an insufferable affront, and consider herself to be tyrannized over openly when she sees the treasure which was contributed by her upon necessity for the war wantonly lavished out upon our city to gild her all over and to adorn her, to set her forth as it were some vain woman hung around with precious stones and figures and temples which cost the world a world of money. Sentence 2.
That's like William F. Buckley wrote that.
Sentence 2. That was 2 sentences.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I think it sounds better in Latin.
I'm sure it does. And then when I'm reading this Heracles,
In Herodotus?
Herodotus rather.
Okay, thank you.
I'm reading this, and this is okay. Okay, so of the Egyptians themselves, those who dwell in the part of Egypt which is sown for crops, practice memory more than any other men, and are the most learned in historical questions by far, for all those whom I have tested. That's one sentence. That's pretty practical. The manner of life is this. For 3 successive days in each month they purge, hunting after health with emetics and douches, and they think that all the diseases which exist are produced by men by the food on which they live. The Egyptians are from other causes also the most healthy of all men, next to the Libyans, in my opinion, on account of the seasons, because the seasons do not change. For by the changes of things generally, and especially of the seasons, diseases are the most apt to be produced in men. Their diet follows. They eat bread, making loaves of millet, which they call cailicious, and they use habitually a wine made out of barley, for vines they have not in their land. So it's beer, basically.
No, it's barley wine.
Is it barley wine?
Yeah, it's its
wow.
own thing. It's like beer.
Like the traffic record, John Barley Wine Must Die.
They dry some of their fish in the sun, and then they eat them without cooking. Others they eat cured in a brine. Of birds they eat quail and ducks and small birds without cooking, after first curing them, and everything else which they have belonging to the class of birds or fishes, except such as have been set apart by them as sacred, they eat roasted or boiled. Now, I find this interesting information. This is ancient Egypt. This is actual stuff that they may or may not have done.
Well, it was like the people purging themselves. I thought that's very humorous.
Very nice. Well, the
academic humor is so nerdy.
I just think it's interesting to find out these things about ancient peoples. Whereas this, after you read one sentence 4 times to get the whole gist of it, you're ready to go to sleep. And that's what I read like 2 pages of this. I started reading this at night now too because,
It puts you to sleep?
well, the Plutarch does, but the histories I'm giving myself a treat by reading a couple pages of this and then putting myself out like a light with the Plutarch. I'm just a completist. Once I start something, I need to finish it unless it's I like the information. I just don't like the form of it. All right. That was my contribution. And now we can we can talk about normal things. All right.
Normal.
Well, we can talk about things that are not so hoity-toity. So, Richard, first thing on your list that you want to talk about?
The first thing on my list?
Can't hear you.
Oh,
Oh, he didn't turn me up?
did he go away?
No,
and
he's not turned up. Gotta turn on Richard.
I will turn orange.
I believe
Turn him on like the music machine.
Tom has
Great record.
absconded. Is that? Can you say absconded without?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
We would speak of patients that left
Where'd
without
he
us knowing
go?
they absconded.
Yeah. Okay. So we have Richard always has a very interesting list.
It's eclectic.
Can I be heard now?
Yeah.
Epstein's
Yeah.
list?
I hear you.
Okay, I would like to tell you that the first thing on my list is the poem sent to me by Jason. He's
Okay.
been so motivated coming to the Home of the Future that his creative spark has been rekindled.
Oh, very nice.
True.
Jason,
Very good.
Jason Voorhees?
Dr. Jason, to you.
So I was looking like Charles Bukowski or Robertson Davies, so I had to, notwithstanding my poem, I had to bathe and shave. So this is called Depression. What happened to the printer? My goodness. You don't listen to voicemails when you're depressed. You don't answer texts. You don't open mail. You don't wash clothes. You don't shower. You're dirty. You don't care. You can't get down. You can't get it up either. You don't care. You don't eat. The starvation diet is best. 10 days of none of the food you want, none of the days of the week makes the pounds fall off. Maybe the doc puts you on a miracle drug. You get better. You get better enough that you have just enough juice to kill yourself. Or not, and you continue depressed.
You wrote that?
No, I stole it off of Bazooka Joe.
No, you were talking about Bukowski before.
No,
I didn't
he-
understand what
yeah,
you
No,
were
I wrote
saying.
that. That was mine. That
Said he was
okay.
funnel. What do you call it when you're
Channeling.
channeling? Thank you.
Yeah.
Channeling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just so you know, Vanessa, sometimes Jason's depression is so bad he can't get out of bed.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. That's a problem, and I'm glad you started
I've had
coming.
days where
Yeah.
I gotta sleep 18 hours.
Oh, I've done that. And the good thing is 90% of people that are depressed will be insomniac, but 10%, I'm happy to be in that, will sleep more, the hypersomnia. But it is restful sleep, and I dream, but that's just the thing.
Do you remember the dreams?
Only if I'm woken up during them.
Oh, I
That's
was
the
going to
whole-
say, yeah, because
that's the
it's a
whole point.
long time to sleep.
But it's restful.
Yeah, that's good.
And it is not the sleep of death. So there's the rub.
But for what dreams may come, yes.
That was just Bill Shakespeare for you.
Yeah. But I'm glad you're coming. I'm glad you got in touch with me
Indeed.
on LinkedIn of all things.
Yeah.
I hardly even look at those LinkedIn notifications on my email because most of the time it's somebody been they've gotten to 10 years in their job and I'm not working anymore. I don't really care. But I have a message, so I looked and it was Jason and I was like shocked. It was great, Like, wow.
And that, so you could thank whatever the, maybe it's because of John P. Weixner, but I don't know how they connected it, but they suggested you as a possible friend. And that's kind of scary, creepy, like the computers. Like,
Yeah.
how did they know that?
Yeah. I mean, we haven't seen each other for 25 years or something.
Indeed.
Yeah. So that was
Well,
was
it's 'cause
kind
I
of
saw
a
you first.
serendipitous, you might
Indeed.
say,
I would say that.
because you like to use weird words too.
That's not weird. That's a lovely word. Serendipity is a beautiful word. It's better than
Serendipitous.
kismet.
Yeah, I like kismet too.
But-
I also, you know what I think the funniest word is? Nostril.
Well,
I don't know why, but I find the word nostril hilarious.
there was a guy with whom I worked whose family name was something Italian, but I don't have his permission to use it, but we called him Cat a Nostril because he had a big nose.
Yeah, but my favorite word is sarcophagus. That's my favorite word.
There was somebody on Jeopardy last night that pronounced Himalayas in a word, and I'd never seen or heard before. She said Himalayas.
Yeah, I heard that too. We watched.
Yeah, that I didn't know if that was an accepted pronunciation. That was.
Hey, that's great. I knew someone who used to call pomegranates pomegranates.
My wife said when she was in college, there was one of her roommates who said, "Oh, it's gorgonzola cheese."
Oh God.
Himalayas.
Okay. Yeah, I was surprised by that too. And usually what he'll do is very subtly repronounce it, but he didn't.
Well, earlier this week, Ken was really hung up on this woman who told a skinny dipping story. He was really hung up on it because she was skinny dipping with a friend, and there was a drunk guy who was drowning, and they say so. These two young naked women rescued him from drowning, and Ken wanted to know more and more about it.
That sounds like something from an episode of one of those weird shows like Twilight Zone or something. Craig Sterling's, yeah, one of those weird shows. But so now I'm glad. It's good to write. You know what? I find journaling helps me to process things. Journaling is, I don't write as much poetry anymore, but the thing is, I'm doing a reading next week at the screening room. So, and they have open slots for readers. So if
You could
you
read the Depression poem.
yeah, if you wanted to go up and or something else,
No, I don't have anything else. 25 years ago wrote. I gave it to you the Woke Up Dead story. The code I ran in the earthquake, because you said it had a very 90s or Gen X sound to it, because I ran a code in Buffalo, and we were a cardiac arrest, and the house was so strewn with garbage we couldn't move around, and so this was an old white guy whose house was floor to ceiling with garbage, because I was at the head. Buffalo Fire was up on the bed, leaning down, trying to do compressions like this. I had to put the IV in upside down. I don't know if you know it, that usually you go like this. I had to do it like that, but
wow,
we couldn't. I couldn't get a save out of him. The guy was dead. Most people that die stay dead. That's just a given. But occasionally we lightning strikes. Lightning.
Oh, what was?
But
Klaus Nomi.
and so there he was, and we thought, okay, we had to wait for the police to come, and then they would wait for the Link Fox to come pick up the body, so that there was a chain of evidence in case there was something that was illegal. Well, as it sounds like a truck going by outside, and his fat belly starts shaking, and the tube starts shaking. I'm like, son of a bitch, is this guy still alive? Like,
oh,
like I screwed it up, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? Put my thumb over the tube or something? But then it resolves, and we find out later it was an earthquake, because upper levels will feel it when on the ground you won't.
So the guy was dead then.
Oh yeah, he was still dead.
Just dead and shaking.
He was vibrating because of the earthquake, and it wasn't a truck outside; it was an earthquake.
Ooh.
And but it didn't matter to him, because this was the denouement. It didn't matter to him because he woke up dead that day.
That's right.
That was the last line in it. Woke up dead.
He woke up dead. Huh. I wonder if you do wake up. You don't really.
No, that's well, the problem in Buffalo in the winter is people have the heat on. And you're not dead till you're cold and dead. But people that die in their sleep, they're warm because the house is warm. So they become environmental. They match the environment.
My father died when I was 8, and he died in bed, and the heat was on. It was February 14th. It was Valentine's Day, and wow. I went into the bedroom because everyone kept running around like screaming, "Daddy's dead! Daddy's dead! Daddy's dead!" So I went in the bedroom. I was 8 years old. I didn't, I kind of knew what dead meant, but I went over and I touched him. And he was cold. He wasn't. I mean, he must have been dead for a while, right?
Yeah, but also remember that tepid water that's like 80 degrees feels cold to you when you put your hand in it.
Oh well.
So, yeah,
he
so-
was hard and cold.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, but also if he was Rigerd, that meant he died early in the night and
Yeah.
all night. Yeah.
Yeah, because he was already.
Yeah.
You know, it felt like you could. No, the skin moved, but like it was.
Well, yeah, but it's like waxy.
But
you know,
it was
that-
weird. It was like
it
a
didn't move that
rubber
much.
on a doll.
Right.
It was weird. Yeah. Anyway, okay. So enough of that. So do you have something else on your list?
I've been educating myself on the trial of King Louis XVI.
And how did that strike your interest?
He did not get ahead of the matter.
Don't know. I mean,
Just-
it
just-
How it
just
ends?
interested me, and I sometimes I will watch a YouTube video, wondering if I'm going to like it. And
Yeah.
if I don't, I bail out.
Yeah.
But this thing held my interest all the way through.
Uh-huh.
So do you know the circumstances
Well, the circumstances of his trial.
of his arrest and trial?
Well, it was because of the revolution, right?
Well, sort of. So the French Revolution took place.
Yeah.
About establishing a country with no nobility.
Right.
So basically, it didn't really occur to them, what do we do with the king? So they pretty much left him alone. You know, he was in Versailles, and they
Yeah.
just didn't consult with him, nothing, etc. So that would have been the best outcome
Right.
if that had continued.
Yeah.
But the king decided a grave injustice has been committed against France. I've got to get out of the country. I've got to take my family. And I have to raise an army and bring France back to the monarchy. So he gets as much of the treasury as he could in a coach. He gets his family in the coach. And they start
This is starting to
traveling.
ring a bell now. Yeah.
They start traveling.
Wasn't he dressed up like a woman?
No.
Oh.
No, that was a myth.
That was Russia,
okay.
right?
What was that question?
Was that Russia?
I
He was
might
talking
have been.
about the
Yeah.
dressed up like a woman in the Russian Revolution,
Yeah.
right?
It could have been.
It wasn't
so,
French.
So when he.
So what do you think happens when horses are pulling a whole family and a chest full of gold? They get tired.
Yeah.
So he stops at an inn, and every inn has a stable.
Yeah.
And the person driving the coach says, "Hey, stable boy, we're going to stop and rest the horses, brush them down, water them, feed them, and here's something for your trouble." Boom, and he flips him a gold coin. And the boy
Oh.
catches the coin. He'd never seen a gold coin in his life. And he looks at it, and it says, "Oh, look, King Louis the 16th." And then he looks in the coach. Then he looks at the coin. So he goes in and he tells the people in the end, "You're not going to believe this, but you know who's waiting out in the coach? It's the king." So they go out there and they find that he's leaving and he's got the treasury.
Yeah.
So
It's
the
too bad that he didn't have older coins from a previous monarch. He just had to pick one that was current.
Le roi, c'est moi. His grandfather, you know, that.
Yeah.
so what happens is they notify
L'état, c'est moi.
the local police.
Uh-huh.
Police
Yep.
come by and they arrest him. Now the revolutionary government has a problem.
Right.
It was okay if the king minded his own business, but obviously he did not. And he tried to steal our treasury. So we have to decide what to do with them. So we're going to split the trial up into two parts. Part one, is he guilty of a crime against the state? And everybody's I think it's like 408 people are part of the assembly. And like Robespierre is there and Danton, you know,
Right.
all the famous people are there.
Yeah.
And even supporters of the king are part of the assembly. So Robespierre brilliantly says, okay, so let's all take a vote. Did the king commit a crime? Is he guilty of a crime against France? And we have to say our vote out loud. No secret ballot. He says, is everybody okay with that? Well, if you say no, it's like you got something to hide.
Right.
Oh, yeah, we're okay with that. We're okay. So all 408 people said, yes, he committed a crime. So then they say, okay, now for part 2 of the trial, he's guilty of a crime. And the law on our book says that if you are guilty of a crime against the state of France, such as stealing the treasury,
Yeah.
you should be sentenced to death. So now let's discuss what the sentence should be. Now, this is where I'd like to ask you for your opinion on this. If you were one of those 408 people, one side said, absolutely, you should put the king to death because it will send a message to the people of France that we are serious. Like, don't do anything to overthrow our republic.
Right.
And the other side said, bad idea. If you're going to do that, what you should do is you should find him worthy of death, but then immediately pardon him. And they go, why would we do that? And they say, because now, if another country like Germany or England wants to invade France, you could say, how about if we give you our former king, and in return, you give us like $2 billion? King's ransom.
Yeah.
Do you know how long we'll be able to survive on that if we get that much money?
But
And then you know what the other side argued? They said, don't you realize if we keep the king and don't execute him, that motivates other countries to invade us to rescue him.
wow, it gets,
So if you're
it
in the
gets
assembly,
complicated.
yeah, where do you stand? And then I'll tell you how they voted.
Well, first of all, I don't understand why another. Okay, if they have the king, and they said that if another country wants to invade them, they're going to give their king to that country.
Right. In other words, like, if usually when you're going to invade somebody, you let them know, because this is in the 1700s, and then you would write back and you'd say, well, how about we give you the king, and in return you don't invade us and you give us so much money.
But why would they do that if they were going to invade? I mean, I don't understand why
Well, they don't
would.
want their own men to get killed.
Oh, I see. So France is saying that they're going to invade that country.
No, just the opposite.
But
say Germany wants to invade France. You say to Germany, why? Because you have a member, like a cousin.
Yeah.
A lot of these royal families are all related.
Oh, so they were going to invade to take the king.
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. That's the part I was missing. There was a piece there that I didn't understand.
Yeah.
Why would they want a powerless king?
Because he's
He's a pawn in the game.
all those countries are interbred, right? So
because of family ties.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Times they were a changing, because in the UK, the last prime minister, or the last king that chose a prime minister, was William IV in 1826. So just 30 years later. So the course of change, the wave was coming, and the idea that the royal family is from God and has the power of God. God, the Louis XVI people, l'état c'est moi. That was losing its allure.
right, and people
That's
were
interesting. You bring up the point about the divine right of kings, and currently the people who like to quote God and pretend that the sky dummy really exists have a current movement to make Trump king. It's an actual thing.
Yeah, well, it doesn't surprise me.
Well,
And that reminds me of that. The whole thing with the divine right.
Do you think that the reason for that was that because of the Gutenberg press, like all of a sudden there were books and people could read and people were getting more, not everybody could read, obviously, but the people who could read were coming to different conclusions about.
Well, that's the thing, that in 1984, the book, what the government did was remove words from the language. So if you have an idea and you can't put it into words, you can't express it. And likewise,
that's great. That's like Trump's doing with websites right
now.
And
likewise, it's the public being literate is a relatively new thing, because before the Gutenberg press, the movable type press, who was literate? Not the kings. Only the priests and the monks.
Well, where the kings weren't educated.
Generally, they weren't.
Yeah.
I mean, they were.
Well, I mean, you hear, I mean, like things in like like Alexander the Great had was it Aristotle?
Aristotle was his tutor.
Was his tutor. I mean, but that's farther back. So
That's 2,000 or 1,500 years before then.
Yeah.
So also that was
so a lot changed.
Yeah, that was Greek.
Before
And-
before the Dark Ages.
Indeed. Well,
Yeah.
that's in 476. When was it? The Goths or was it the Vandals that sacked Rome finally when it collapsed? Because the Eastern Roman Empire became the Ottoman Empire, and that existed for another 1,000 years to the 1500s.
Yeah.
But the thing about Louis XVI in his trial. They asked him the questions, and they were all loaded questions, but he said, I don't remember. I have no knowledge of that. That wasn't me. That was the advisors. They didn't tell me. There was a whole slew of them.
Sound familiar?
Yeah. Yeah. Because in any trial, do you know what, what was his, who's the guy who killed the 25, Juan Corona? In Southern California, he killed 25 migrant workers, and the last card you play is incompetent lawyer. That's the last card you play. With you're appealing, and your last appeal, you say, I had incompetent legal counsel, and that's what he did to save him from.
So Louis the 16th said that he had.
No, what you do is you throw everything at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah, well.
So I don't remember. That wasn't me. That was somebody else. That was the Council of Advisors. That didn't happen.
Well, that's that movie, and you saw it too, The Apprentice. That's what Roy Cohn was telling Trump to do and telling everyone to do. And I didn't know this. Greg just told me recently, but Roy Cohn was best friends with McCarthy.
Mm-hmm. Even though Roy Cohn was out gay.
I mean, and very interesting. Two good friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
like Trump and Epstein.
yeah. So Richard, what now?
Okay, so what happens then is they have this debate.
Yeah.
So if you're one of the people in the assembly, are you going to vote to kill the king, or are you going to vote to keep him alive as a pawn? Because I was thinking, what would I vote if I was sitting there?
I can't. I mean, I'd have to bring my brain back to that period of history.
The people who voted to kill him said, look, killing him is a better idea.
Wouldn't it make him a martyr, though?
No, they said it symbolizes we can't go back.
Okay.
See? It symbolizes that the aristocracy is gone, and France is now a republic of the common man.
Well, I can see that.
And then there's the people who say keep him as a pawn, which I could see that too.
Yeah.
But people that are pawns in that time can't keep their mouth shut. I can you couldn't muzzle him, and that's the problem.
Was he going to be set free though, or was he kept in prison?
Oh, that was another option, but I don't think anybody voted for that.
So he would be kept in prison.
Well, house arrest.
House arrest.
Yeah.
Well, so he'd be house arrest. So he really wouldn't have a lot of interaction with, common. Well,
unless
not that
you
he
could
ever
smuggle
did.
messages out.
Yeah, of course you can. Yeah, but
Or they could come to you.
When you had Queen Elizabeth and Queen Mary,
Mm-hmm.
Queen Mary was smuggling messages out.
yeah,
Help me set up a rebellion so we can overthrow Queen Elizabeth, which is why Queen
yeah,
Mary
lots
got
of
beheaded.
Lots of that's why that kind of history is interesting. All the intrigue.
Well, but even to the 1800s, because U.S. Marine, two companies, U.S. Marines, backed up the invaders that stole the Kingdom of Hawaii. That because they didn't have communication with the mainland. Now the radio will get you there, or the telephone will get you there immediately.
Yeah.
But Hawaii was stolen from the people that had the right to it. It was stolen.
Well, was the whole United States of America was stolen.
No, this was in the developed world.
Yeah.
This isn't like where there weren't
Yeah.
even written things. This was in the 1880s. It was stolen, and the U.S. Marine Corps backed them up, because it's all fun and games until you bring Marines into it, and then they'll just kill you dead. Why do you think they call them devil dogs just 40 years later? Tuffelhunden.
You know, all this talk about
Killing?
death reminds me
Tod.
that there was another sentence in that book that I thought Richard would enjoy. Do you want to finish what we're doing now and then remind me and we'll come back?
Just do it now.
Oh, so
I'm asking
how did-
Richard. It's
yeah.
Richard's been. We were talking about this.
Yeah, how did they vote? That's what I'm sitting on the edge of my seat for.
So they're going back and forth, keep him as a pawn, execute him, keep him as a pawn. So they took the vote. He was ordered to death by one vote.
Wow.
That's how close they were divided.
Wow.
Holy cow!
Wow.
Isn't that something?
What luck.
That was a obviously it was a little off.
So the question was, who's going to go tell the king?
Oh Jesus!
Because he wasn't standing there when they were debating. He was at his house
Of course,
arrest.
yeah.
So they said to the, he had a private vicar, the minister.
Yeah.
Well, you've been his vicar his whole life. It's your job. You got to go tell him. So when this
Dirty work.
So when this minister goes to tell him, he can't stop crying, and the king is like going, I can't quite understand. What are you trying to tell me exactly? And so when he finally gets the sentence out, they decided, you knew you were guilty. I already told you they found you guilty. Now they're going to kill you. The king starts crying. So these two guys are
God.
crying. And then the king says to the vicar, somebody's got to tell my wife and daughter and that. And he says, would you do it?
Wow, what a lousy job that was.
Yeah, it was.
But didn't Marie Antoinette get beheaded as well?
Only after it was found out that she was conspiring with other royal families.
Ah, I see.
Yeah. So it was. I thought it was an interesting. I decided personally I would have kept them as a pawn
Well, that's
because you can do a lot more with negotiation.
Yeah.
When you got a position of strength.
And
like that.
it's hard when we're in 2025 to navigate our brain back to how people thought
well,
and how we would think if we were there.
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
fast forward to the 20th century. The last public guillotining in France was in 1936. 400,000 people turned out. The last person to be guillotined in France was in 1977. Hamad Janoubi, who was an Algerian national rapist and murderer, he was the last one to
In the 70s?
in the 70s. It wasn't public, it was private.
Holy
but
crow.
there was a guy that was scheduled to be executed in 1981, but when Mitterrand became prime minister in 1980, they abolished the death penalty.
Yeah, so I mean, the way of thinking is so different.
Do you know why we don't use the guillotine in the U.S.?
I don't know, because we import our steel.
No.
I don't know. I
No.
make it.
No, because it leaves the body unpresent. You can't put it in a casket. When you lose the head, it's cruel or unusual, and it's the unusual. So
But
that's
the-
why.
But the other stuff, the poisoning and having people like not die and
Do you realize how often that
Oh, wow.
happens? No, generally it's very effective. I mean, have you ever?
Why don't they just give them an overdose of heroin?
Because some of these people are so addicted that you could give them 80 milligrams of Dilaudid and it won't kill them.
Really?
Yeah.
Hey, how about that current news story? The guy in South Carolina that they strapped to a chair, put a target on his chest, and had 3 guys shoot him with.
Oh, he
rifles.
asked for a firing
Yeah, he
squad.
did ask for
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
but that's really brutal. They're
Yeah.
going
Is it
backwards.
brutal? No, it isn't.
It's brutal. What, do you think being tied to a chair with a target around your chest with a bag on your head and getting shot by 3 dudes at close proximity isn't brutal?
You know what'd be more brutal? No bag on your head and somebody shooting you in the face.
Oh
No, it'd be
God.
better. I think no bag on the head would be better because then you could see it coming.
Well, he
You
had
can see a bullet in the air? Okay.
he had asked he had asked to be executed that way.
Yeah.
And, and they honored it.
How can you justify this at all?
I don't believe in capital punishment, but
Right,
I'm saying
but-
in this case, this guy asked
No, there's
instead
no
of.
justification. Even if he asked,
Yeah.
there's no justification.
Yeah. I don't believe.
Well, that's why we.
Not in a civilized world, which we don't have anymore, unfortunately. No. Zero tolerance for that kind of shit is what should be.
So you brought up the guillotine. Mm-hmm. So they then had a problem. How are we going to kill the king now that we've decided to kill him? Are we going to have it in a private ceremony, or is it going to be public? They took a vote on it. They said we should make it public. But then somebody said, well, that could be a problem, because if you're going to have it public, what's to stop some underground resistance movement from using that opportunity to free him?
Like in the Three Musketeers or whatever that was.
I'm sure there have been movies where,
Yeah.
and they said, you're right. So what they did is they said, okay, let's set some ground rules up for the king's execution. Number one, the first 25 rows around, where are we going to do it? We're going to do it in the biggest square in Paris.
Yeah.
Okay. The first 25 rows from the front row will all be soldiers. All right. Okay. So that way people can't try to leap up on there. Okay. Second of all, we're going to pass a law. No women can watch it.
Couldn't someone dress up like a soldier, though, and sort of sneak in you?
Well, I think the people standing next to you would know you're not part of the battalion.
Well, why no women?
Because they said there will be hysterics.
Oh, okay.
You'll have this great display of emotion.
Yeah.
And they said, we don't want that. We want this to be an act of justice and decency. Believe it or not, that's what they said.
Yeah. I understand from that perspective what they meant.
So the person who was in charge of, there was one person who was in charge of the guillotines in France. His name was Sassoon. He was the 6th generation of the people in charge of the guillotine. So it was his father, his grandfather, his great-grandfather, his great-great-grandfather. So this family had it all sewn up that from the time Junior was a kid, Junior, the day will come when you will have this great honor.
Junior, why don't you go out and behead some mice?
Well, that leads
Why don't you go cut the tail off the cat?
So-
You practice.
abusing animals. You have to do that to have the antisocial personality disorder diagnosis.
Yeah.
So it falls upon the executioner to go and consult with the king and tell the king, which is what the executioner would always do. It's sort of like being an undertaker. You go and you see the king. You say, I will give you an honorable death. I will have the blade real sharp. It'll be so quick you won't even notice it. I will make sure that it hits you in the right spot of the neck, so I don't cut your jaw off, or, if it's too high. And so the king says, well, I have long hair. And he said, don't worry, I will pick up your hair. I will cut off right at the spot where the blade's going to fall, so none of your hair will be messed up. The king was worried about his hair.
Talk about priority problems.
So, and so the person who ran the guillotine, he did an impeccable job. Do you know what the other royal families did in the other parts of Europe when the news got out? They fabricated a story that when the king got up and you stand up next to a board and then they lower the board.
Yeah.
He screamed out in terror because he was about to be killed. And the blade hit the wrong spot of the skull. And he did not die.
Oh, God.
All fake.
Yeah. Fake news.
None of that was true.
Gee, I wonder where... I've heard that before.
There are history books to this day that repeat that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Isn't that something?
Before the guillotin, they just had the axe. And those executioners...
Skilled labor.
Well, that's not skilled, because some people took up to 9 hits to take their head off. Because the executioner was so drunk because he couldn't tolerate, he has to kill people, and he's the state executioner. And so they're just hacking away, and he's missing because he's blind drunk.
I have a great idea for you. I think you should write a book about executions. About it seems like
Well, that's just it. I wrote something online about it just off the top of my head.
You've got an amazing amount of knowledge, and I think people are really interested in this kind of gruesome stuff. I can help you self-publish it. I do that on Lulu.
Oh, okay. I don't know who Lulu is.
It's a publishing house.
I know, but I made the joke
Yeah.
there. I personified it versus
Oh,
being
I see. Yes,
objectified.
But I'm serious. People are interested in this kind of gruesome stuff.
Well, at the same time, I've gotten all mine from books, so I'd just be plagiarizing.
No, you wouldn't, because you'd be telling the stories and you put them all in the same place, and you just make sure you reference it.
Yeah. Footnotes.
I mean, where do you think other people get their information from?
Well-
From the air?
Well,
They get it from-
Andy Weir and E.L. James, those are two self-publishers that did well. Because The Martian was a good story. That 50 Shades of Grey was written like a sixth grader wrote it. You know, it was like slash fiction. It was trash. It was poorly written. Like J.K. Rowling can write. Suzanne, who's the one who wrote Twilight? Suzanne.
I don't know.
Well, hers was all right, but the 50 Shades of Grey, they're
God,
written.
it's a horrible book.
That's what I just said.
Yeah.
It is. It's terrible.
Yeah, it's poorly written, because you can have 100 Days of Sodom by Madat.
Assad.
Yeah, and it could be well written, or the story of O could be well written, even with a horrible subject matter.
Yeah.
But 50 Shades of Grey was, but with a horribly written.
Yeah, I didn't read it, so I can't comment. I had no
I
interest.
read it. It's horrible.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. It's so horrible.
Yeah, it's so bad it's good material. Because some is just so bad
like
it's so
Vanilla
bad.
Ice's rap. So bad it's good.
Well, what I find amazing about Steven Spielberg is no matter how bad a movie is, he'll watch it because he is about the art.
Yeah.
Where we say that's Drek. He watched Shakes the Clown, which is an execrable, horribly made movie.
Do you like it, Nessa? Shakes the Clown?
I've not had the pleasure of seeing it.
That was the movie where
Now I want to.
Bobcat Goldthwait, who's he's a party clown, and it starts out
I like him.
with the kid. The first scene is a kid taking a leak on his head because his head's in the toilet. The kid's taking a leak on his head, and you find out that he had a one-night stand with Florence Henderson. Now, this was 30 years ago, so she'd just been 20 years before, was on the Brady Bunch. It's
Yeah.
not like 50 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's just... it's just poorly written and poorly acted. It's just like, really?
Well,
That's my favorite.
I know. That's why I
moving
asked you if you
acting.
liked it. So, James, you're sitting there. You're so quiet and you're so subdued, and you're in a hotel room. It looks like, where you're someplace else. How are you?
I'm okay.
No matter where you go, there you are.
I would like to just vent for just a moment.
Okay, go ahead.
You may be aware of the situation I had where some chick was arguing with her boyfriend while they were rolling down Genesee, and she decided to be Rihanna and punch and kick him while he's trying to pilot the
God.
car, which caused them to end up running into my building at
Oh no.
more than the speed limit. And this, of course, damaged my property very much.
I'm sorry to hear that.
The insurance company took 6 months to acknowledge that this was something that they had to do something about. And when they finally decided that they would send the just compensation, they sent it to the wrong address because the adjuster, after we've been emailing, phone calling, and everything else for 6 months, somehow put Jesse Street in place of Genesee Street.
So did it get to somebody?
Well, no, because there's no street. There
Okay,
is no
all right,
Jesse Street.
in your zip code. And so So
or even in Erie County.
did they send it? Did they send it back to sender? Is that, or did it get just lost in the mail?
Well, I am told by the post office that in that case, no street name period in the entire county. They would have just sent it back.
Yeah.
They would have the postal workers, that is to say, the mail carriers of that zip code, look it over to see if there's any easy error
Right.
that would identify someone on their
That
route.
doesn't sound like anything anybody would make. I mean, they would just make an assumption that Jesse was Genesee. I don't think so.
Well,
That-
I think they would. I mean, that's the whole idea. They know their zip code and they know their route and they know the house numbers. Like, they would know there's a 45 and a 43 here, and there's
What-
not a
would
47.
is your address, the number of your address, that unusual?
The
That
address was correct. The street was what was wrong. And the point is, there is no Jesse Street in all of Erie County.
yes, yes.
So,
So now you have to
point
wait
is-
again.
well, the waiting is now over. It's just that I would have had this thing a month ago if they hadn't done one more stupid thing to screw me over.
Well, have you considered changing
What was
insurance
that?
companies?
This is not my insurance company. This is the insurance company of the driver of the
Oh,
car.
Wow, you're lucky as heck they had insurance.
Yeah, you're lucky. I mean, really. I mean, not everybody follows the rules.
I mean, it's
so
like,
what happened?
So I guess you got the money, you got the check.
Finally, yes.
Good, good. I'm glad.
because if you have checks, you have money. That's the same type of rationale that people use. You know, like,
That is.
who needs insurance? You don't need it till you need it. So I don't need it because I'm a good driver. So I'm not going to hit anything.
Well, in New York State, it's mandatory.
Yeah, it's mandatory, meaning if a officer pulls you over.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, right, right.
I'm talking like boots on the ground.
Let's see. If you go to register your car, do you need to show insurance, proof of insurance?
Yes.
The perfect person to ask.
when
The
you
perfect person. You're right. You are the perfect person to ask.
In the state of New York, yes, but there are many states they just take your word for it.
Oh, okay.
Or and there's states where you don't need to have it, like
Oh,
South
like
Carolina.
like Florida. You don't need it in Florida.
Rhode Island, you didn't need it either.
But
Where?
the people in Florida drive like
Rhode Island?
Oh.
holy maniacs, and I would never consider driving without insurance there. For in fact, I'm surprised I'm still alive.
But it's like you don't have to have malpractice insurance for doctors in Florida either. It's called going bare. And the thing is, fine, sue me. You're not going to get anything. That's what the rationale is.
Yeah.
I got nothing to take. Because if it's an insurance company, they can get rich.
Yeah.
You can't. You know that. Why do Kias get stolen? Because that's crimes of opportunity. But a better car to steal is a BMW or a Mercedes. That's
Yeah.
why they're so hard to steal.
Oh, yeah.
Because the value of it. But
Yeah.
if they improve the security on a Kia, nobody would ever steal them because there's no money to be made there.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I know. Stripping down a Kia. What's the point of that?
Indeed, and so that's why. The things we rely on people being civil. We trust other people are civil because we mostly. You hear about 1%ers. You know the bikers that are the 1% that are outside. Well, 99% are just the normal people in the cages. They call them the cars. Driving, following the rules, stopping at red lights, stopping at stop signs, using their signals, not running over pedestrians. I almost got hit by a car when I was coming here this evening because I was wasn't even paying attention, and I just started walking the street, and this dude was so quiet as he came up, and he didn't even beep his horn, but he didn't hit me. But that would have been my
Electric car?
fault. No,
No.
that's the whole thing.
No.
It was a
Wow.
It was a gas-powered environment killer, and
They're all environment killers,
Yeah.
and yet we're still alive.
Yeah, we're still alive.
including the electric cars with the crap they make the batteries out of.
Yeah. I will never be able to afford one, so I can't even comment on that.
This is just anecdotal, but Every time I see a fit, if there's one person in the fit, it's a woman. But if it's a couple, it can be a man and a woman. But I've never seen one person in the car driving a fit as a guy.
When I got my car, the first one, when I bought it new, the only car I've ever had new, I researched it like crazy. I went to the library. I looked up every single thing because I knew it would be the only time I'd ever buy a new car. And the fit got rated the best out of any of the cars that I was looking at. And I loved the fact the seats went down. We could stack stuff in the back. The gas mileage was great. Even though it's a small car, when you get in it, you feel like you're in a bigger car because it's like hollow inside. And so it's great. And I bought that car based on lots and lots of research, and I loved it so much I bought another one. I loved it so much. It's just such a great car for me.
Well,
Mr.
Hatchbacks
Walker,
are great.
Yeah.
he likes a particular car that runs on diesel fuel.
an Oldsmobile 78 Oldsmobile.
No, a Mercedes.
Oh.
And
He's a fancy guy.
and he knew he like you. He liked it so much that he wanted to get another one.
Yeah.
Where did you have to travel to get it? New Jersey, James?
Yes, I got one of them from New Jersey.
He went all the way to New Jersey to buy a car somebody was selling.
Well, you know what? I applaud you on that because I knew what I wanted. I wanted this car because I had 255,000 miles on it, and now I'm giving it to my granddaughter as her first car, and it still runs.
What year was it?
2009.
So did the 2009 still have the blue dot over the eye on the back?
I don't know.
The logo.
Yeah, you should know that because
Why?
Because it's one of those things that makes it stand out because they don't do it anymore. And it was either 7 and 8 or 8 and 9.
I'll have to look at because the first year they made him was a 7.
Oh, so then it probably doesn't have the dot.
Yeah. And then so I've got I guess it turns out Pam Schwartz has the same orange fit. I mean, that really I think is pretty funny.
You two should have a drag race somewhere and see which one's faster.
Well, my brother-in-law, who I don't get along with, I was going to say something crude. He says about my wife's car, which he had a fit 0 to 60. Yes.
Yeah, but and I have an eco button on my car. I mean,
Don't use that.
Why?
I have an eco button on my HRV, and it killed my mileage. It didn't eco it; it put it the other way.
Oh, okay. Well, it was set that way when I got it, but I know how to unset it.
It's called you push the
Just
button.
push the button. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not
not
like it's
hard. No,
Yeah.
I figured out how to connect Pandora from my phone. I'm so freaking excited. I was listening to all this great music in my car, and it wasn't on the radio. It was on my phone. I feel like I've just entered the 21st and a half century. That's from Nessa the duck, Daffy Duck, Buck Rogers in the 21st and
Duck
a half
Dodgers
century.
and the Dodgers.
Duck Dodgers. That's it. Yeah.
But you know, it's interesting. There was a show that was on Fox Network or Fox 12 years ago.
Yeah.
It was what was it? Almost Human. It takes place in 2049 with a cop who has a chip on his shoulder and his partner is an android.
Oh, I did not.
Yeah,
I must have missed that one.
No, it was really good. It was
Yeah.
Carl Urban was in it with what's his name, Michael Ealy, the black dude with the really blue eyes.
Oh, okay.
You know him if you
Yeah,
saw him.
I
He's
know.
a beautiful man.
I
like
know.
Gary Dourdan of CSI, the same way. Really, just beautiful guys. And there was one of the women. So in Hawaii, the Puna House School. If you go to the Puna House School where Obama went, you become a doctor. You don't become a nurse. And there was a nurse with whom I worked. She said that. I became a nurse. She said I was a paramedic then a nurse. You don't go to Punahou and become a nurse. And there's a character in the movie who's a cop, and she's genetically engineered. Mm-hmm. And so those parents who could select it in 2049, they said, you don't become a cop if you're genetically engineered. You become a doctor, or you become a lawyer, you become a politician, you become an engineer that runs a company. You don't become a police officer.
Yeah.
And she was the outlier like that, you know?
Yeah. I don't. I'm waiting. I hope I'm around to see what happens when there's actual robots walking around. I think it'll be interesting.
Well, that's why I mentioned
Daleks, the best robots.
because they don't look like anything living. Because that's why I mentioned the uncanny valley. People get creeped out when it's almost there. You know, when it's almost alive.
Yeah, yeah.
You know-
I don't know. I find I'm interested in what life's going to be like in the robotic age.
Well,
I don't know if I'll get to see it though.
watch Wall-E.
Oh, I did. My
that's what
friend
happens.
Patty made me watch Wall-E.
People will be all obese sitting there, and the machines will do everything.
Yeah.
And they'll just be sitting there, you know, wallowing. And
Well, that's what in the year
25,
20,
Zager and Evans.
25. If man is still alive, if
Yeah.
women will survive, they may find. Yeah,
WJJ Hell.
yeah. I had that 45.
I had the album.
Oh wow!
You got ripped
beat
off.
Me.
I bought it for $1. I didn't get ripped off.
you got ripped off.
For $1?
Yes.
That's worth $1.
Yeah.
I'd buy that for $1.
Yeah, and I did.
Oh, you did get the new lens. Ah, peer pressure. Let's see what happens now. That picture you sent me of you and Jason was so crisp, I couldn't stop looking at it.
Crisp.
It was beautifully done. It was just delightful to look at.
Artsy, not fartsy.
It was really nice. Very nice photograph.
Well, do you want to know why I got that lens?
Well, that wasn't the lens you took the picture with, though.
The lens I took the picture with is the lens that came with the camera.
Right. And you got Tom and
And everybody said to me, if you buy a better lens, you'll get better quality pictures.
wow, it's hard to believe there could be a better quality than that picture you took of you and Jason. Now we'll see, won't we?
Well, what happened then is I went on a research binge, like which is a better quality lens, and they were all over $1,000, and that turned me off.
I can see why.
You know, I'm not going to pay this much money to get this much better quality.
Yeah.
If I'm going to get this much better quality, I'm going to spend this much more money.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about it, and I said, you know, when I started in photography in 1976, I used to hear the same thing. Get a good quality lens, because that's half the camera,
Yeah.
right? And I remember that I would always look in the back of the magazines at the prices of the lenses and everything, and I also thought they were too expensive at the time.
Yeah.
Like there was this one lens I really wanted to get, but it was $990.
That's a lot of money back then.
This Nikon lens, and I thought, oh,
Was it like one of those 2-meter lenses?
No, no. And so I'm thinking about that, and I thought, I wonder if anybody has any of those lenses now on eBay.
Oh, so you did the eBay route.
But you can't use them on a typical digital camera.
It has to be on the.
Well, you have to know what you're doing.
Yes.
Like, in other words, you put it on a digital camera, and now you have to change the way you think. It doesn't autofocus. It doesn't set the exposure. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Which is what people want.
Right. They want to be user creativity
Because I started
knowledge.
thinking, like, you know, in like 1980, when the first autofocus lens came out, I would read article after article. If you're a beginner, get yourself an autofocus lens. You know.
Yeah, but there's so many variations.
So
you
I
can
went
do.
on YouTube, and I put down benefits of a manual focus lens, and there's a number of people who did videos, and they all say the same thing. If you're truly a professional, you don't use autofocus.
Yeah.
Right.
In fact, get yourself a good quality manual focus lens from the days when they used to sell them in good quality.
Yeah.
So anyway, I found that $980 lens.
Yeah.
And then I started checking. And so this guy is selling one for $60. Can you believe it?
This is for the new camera?
Well, got to realize it's a lens from 1984.
So,
Well-
but you can use it on your
It'll still
digital
hook on.
camera.
Yes.
Well, because what that is you are the automatic settings.
yes.
Yeah.
You are the
I am the
automatic
settings.
Yeah. That's
All
the
right,
whole
so
point.
let Richard wrap up because we got 30 seconds left.
So I gave him the ultimate test. I started corresponding with him.
Yeah.
Are you sure? Are you selling this for someone? No, I'm not. This is mine. I used to do a lot of film photography.
Yeah.
Did you ever leave this in a cold area where it could have gotten condensation in it? No, it's been in my case the whole time. And then when people write to me, I get
Yeah.
to know them,
Yeah.
and I knew I could trust this guy.
Yeah, that's good.
So it came in today, and I'll show it to you.
Good. Well, that was a perfect way to end the show. So here we go. Thank you, everybody, for coming. And I will see you all next week, hopefully. And listen, James, at least you got it, right? You got it.
The money.
The money. You got it, baby.
Show me the money.
Not before the first floor in the front of my building collapsed.
Oh, honey, I'm
Because
sorry.
it took so much time.
I'm sorry.
Ooh.
I'm sorry.
So the money might not cover the damages.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Maybe you should contact the guy that fixed Richard's porch. Maybe he'd be able to help you.
Yeah.
We'll see.
All right. Okay. I'm going to take my ears off.
Okay.
Okay.
We got a
Goodbye,
bonus long
everybody.
show now.
We're done. Yeah. Richard's got to turn off everything because Tom's gone.
Where'd he go?
He went to see a band that his cousin is in.
Oh,
I got that out of him. I squeezed it out of him.
great. That's more
Yeah.
than I knew.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if you had to see a man about a horse.
My father used to say I got to see a man about a dog. Okay. So I'm going to take my ears off and thank you for all coming.
Okay. So when it came in the mail today, first thing you look and see how well it was packed. Because if it's not packed well, it means you've been scammed.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
So, this is a good sign. 4 layers of packing, very good.
Uh-huh.
Tell me if you